Chapter 1: Wolves, Sharks, and Monsters. Wolves, Sharks, and Monsters. I'm sure you have heard warnings about watching out for wolves. We can all trace our first hearing of the tale of the big bad wolf back to preschool or kindergarten. They are ravenous people. I'm pretty sure we all had our first encounter with them, maybe in middle school or high school if you are lucky. Where I'm from, wolves are developed early because it is a roll with the pack, eat or be eaten kind of way of life. But what if I told you there are two more levels that are even more nefarious than the wolves? Would you believe me? The other categories are the sharks and the monsters. Let's start with the wolves. First, let me say that wolves are both lone hunters and pack creatures. They can also be scavengers. With that said, allow me to unpack and develop all my thoughts. Wolves are really cunning individuals, and honestly, they come to devour, but it can be really sneaky. I remember the first time I realized I was dealing with a wolf. It was my 7th grade year of middle school. Mind you, when I look back to the year of 6th grade, there were a lot of wolves being developed around me, but I was still a little wet behind the ears and green to the streets at this point. A guy that I kind of looked up to for more than one reason, but mainly because I thought he was cool and our mothers knew each other and had allowed us to play together a few times as kids in early elementary school, had an in-school suspension with me and some other kids. One of the other kids that was in retrack with us, he and I had a real oil and water type relationship. Hindsight is 20/20, and he was even less fortunate than the rest of us and had real anger issues. I just had pops issues at this point and hadn't been through any type of hardship. So struggle and real fight was foreign to me. This guy walked around angry all the time, and I was an easy mark to take his frustration out on. Please don't get it twisted. I was no punk. I certainly fought for mines every time, but the skill level was different, and it showed every time we locked horns. This particular day, we were chirping at each other with no real desire to fight on either side. However, there was a real wolf in the midst, and he was there to stir up as much chaos as possible. It was like he got joy and happiness from others' pain. The wolf started insisting that we go to the bathroom in the cafeteria we were responsible for cleaning and fight it out. This was the very first time I think I experienced peer pressure to do something that I truly had no desire to do. Skip a few scenes. I ended up fighting 3 times that day to appease his amusement. The first time against the guy that I was like oil and water with. The second against the guy I had never even held a conversation with and actually thought he was a pretty cool kid. And the third against the oil and water guy again at the end of our suspension. I wound up walking to my aunt's house not too far from the school and getting some wise words from an older play cousin. I just gave you my first experience with a wolf. That wasn't my last, and it wasn't my only encounter that year at school. I learned from that experience. I learned a few things after that day, though. The first of which is, wolves prey on the weak. They sense the difference in power levels. Whether it is loneliness, finances, physicality, mentality, spiritually. A wolf can sense if you are vulnerable, and they like to exploit said weaknesses. The second thing is, wolves love to recruit. Wolves roll in packs, and they both develop other wolves or prey to roll with them. That day, I was prey, and I could have allowed myself to stay in that cycle had it not been for some wisdom God had allowed to be imparted in me. You know how you can tell if you are being pursued by a wolf? First, evaluate your stores of fat and look at your weaknesses. For example, let's say you are a caring person. Your store of fat just may be your giving heart. Do you know what your weakness is? I would say potentially playing up on your emotions would be your Achilles heel. Please don't mistake this simplified example of a wolf for the only example of what a wolf could, might, can, and will do. Remember, wolves are very much apex predators and are carnivores. Nothing is off the table for a hungry wolf when you are looking like food. Next, there are the sharks. Funny thing about a shark is it can sense a small amount of blood up to 1/4 of a mile away. Do you know what this means? It means that a shark can spot its victim from a ways away, and the potential prey has no idea that it is being stalked until it is too late. Sharks are lone hunters for the most part and typically don't run in packs, and they love to separate their prey from the herd and have them isolated. Now, usually, sharks are males, and they usually find prey in either weaker males or women. But this rule isn't absolute. Allow me to paint this picture. Imagine you are a young lady that has this guy from college that has been pursuing you for the bulk of your college tenure. You finally give in to his advances and you all begin to court. In the first few weeks, you all have gone on a few dates that were awesome. He opened the door and bought flowers like a perfect gentleman, always treating you with respect. You all decided to actually make it official and become a couple and move in together. In this example, you are now 24 years old and want to go out with your friends for your birthday and decide to wear a black dress that shows off your womanly curves. You have worn a dress similar to this before in the past and think nothing of it. As you are getting dressed, your boo walks into the bathroom and says he doesn't like what you are wearing and advises you to change your attire. He leaves the house and you decide to keep on what you are wearing because the dress isn't too short in your opinion and there's nothing wrong with it. 2 a.m. after partying with friends, you come home, and as soon as you walk through the door, pow, right in the kisser. And you hear, "Didn't I tell you not to wear that dress?" I don't need to elaborate what happens after this. But let's skip some scenes and see where he has apologized and promised to never do it again, pleading that you not get your family or the law involved. A few months go by, and the gentleman you initially dated is in full swing, and you can't even remember what happened the night of your birthday. But then there was an argument because a guy at the gas station offered to pay for your gas while you were in the store, and he saw the guy smile at you while you were walking to your car. But what he did not see was you politely turn the guy down and point to your boyfriend at the car. During this argument, he loses his temper and hits you again, and this time takes it a step further by mentally berating you and insisting that you are worthless without him. He pushes the impression that your family and friends can't help you, and that if you call the law, he will kill you before they ever get to you. In this example, the young lady is a cycle of shark attack and calmness. Remember, sharks don't have arms, so they don't hold their prey in place to consume them. No, it is a continual cycle of chomps until the creature is no more and fully devoured. The first time I encountered a shark was in my very own home as a child. It was one of my brother's fathers. This guy was really cool, but when he got angry, he would fight God himself. I got to see firsthand how sharks circled and isolated their prey and played mind games between "you are safe" and "I will destroy you." At an early age, I learned to notice the signs of sharks. In a domestic situation, sharks usually have substance abuse issues or can't control their emotions. They generally get angry really quickly and have control issues. I did not study psychology in college, so don't take anything I say as law, but this is what I have noticed as a kid growing up and paying attention to patterns and characteristics of those around me. Lastly, the monsters. These individuals are friends to no one, and not even other monsters are safe around them, and that is something you should pay attention to. Monsters thrive on the very notion that at the tick of the second hand on the clock, they can change the temperature in any room that they walk into. And you know what the scariest thing about a monster is? You don't really know that you are dealing with one until they make their presence known. Unless you just so happen to be in the know, you can never tell. Monsters' emotions and conscience have been so calloused over that snuffing out life is as easy as taking a breath for them. And in this sense, I stress life because monsters don't even care about their own lives. They fall in both the category of crash dummies and calculated masterminds. And, in simple terms, if you ever find yourself across from a monster, get out of the way or take them out as fast as possible and deal with the consequences of the authorities later. The first time I encountered a monster, he wasn't quite a monster yet. He was on his way to becoming a monster. And I don't say this lightly, but lucky for the world, another monster took him out before he turned 18 years of age. I had to be no more than 10, but at the very least 8. There used to be this guy in my neighborhood who would terrorize us kids, and I do mean terrorize us kids. I had a play cousin at the time whose mother and my mother were best friends, and we all lived in the same area. We were allowed to ride bikes and play in the general area, but it was always short-lived, and, as kids, we used to have to worry about a certain someone coming outside and making our lives pure hell. No child should feel like they can't play outside because they are going to get beat up by someone 10 years their senior, but this was the case every summer, every weekend, every afternoon after school. It got so bad that we didn't even want to play outside anymore. And when we would go to the other's house, we would run a full-blown sprint at least half a mile to the other's doorstep and beg and cry for our parents to watch us, but too afraid to tell them what was going on for fear of what he may do to us and our parents. Needless to say, one day I heard a rumor that I won't share out of respect for his family, but the fear was gone. But just looking back, now I know without the shadow of a doubt, he was on the way to becoming a monster. And that very thought is chilling that my 8-year-old self had to deal with that. It took me years to learn about wolves, sharks, and monsters. And honestly though, as a child, I could always tell that these people were different from everyday people in my crossing. But what had to develop was the wisdom of how to navigate them and the correct categories to put them in. In my life, I have had more run-ins with wolves than monsters. And I typically hear about sharks from female friends I deal with, not to imply they don't prey on males too. I have a brother who has dealt with more monsters in his life than I have because of the path he walked. And that's not to say I haven't seen a lot of monsters. It's just that on my path, monsters would do better to hide themselves more and adopt more of a shark or wolf approach because it's more beneficial to keep your prey alive. But that is not to say the worst doesn't happen. Also, I know I kinda just said it, but the thing about a monster is that they can adapt to whatever personality is needed to get the job accomplished for their task. That is probably the scariest thing, to tell the truth, because you could have a monster in your life for decades before they reveal themselves. Be vigilant, my friends. I can't tell what is necessary to keep from being prey to any of them, and how to safely get away if you realize you are in their jaws. But what I do know is, be prepared to give your life for your life. Learn to count your money, go to therapy, talk to your family and friends, learn self-defense by way of close combat, learn how to safely handle a weapon like a knife or a gun. Put yourself in a position where you do not look like an appealing meal. Most predators don't hunt other predators. This doesn't mean you have to be out being a terrorist, but as the late Nip the Great said, just like money, no money, nigga shooters respect other shooters.